and welcome to our stress webinar for the month of January in the new year of 2026. It's great to have you all here, and I say hi to everyone online as well. Yeah, it's an interesting topic because we just came out of a probably pretty stressful season for most people with family and presents and finances and all sorts of stuff throughout the holiday season. And so we thought this was a good topic to hit at this time of year. Even as we enter a new year, there's still new stresses, right? What will this new year bring? All sorts of things. And so we just wanted to talk about this today in light of all of that. First, we'll start with a definition of what type of stress we're talking about, because there's lots of different stresses, like physical stresses, like if you put stress on a board or something to break it. Like there's lots of different types of stress. So which one are we talking about? And so, according to the Oxford Dictionary, stress is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And honestly, this type of stress happens for all of us. We all have situations in our lives or circumstances in our lives that cause us quite a bit of emotional strain or mental strain. And so, what do we do with that? First, I want to talk about the causes of stress because there's so many different things that can cause it. And you're going to see how many different things, and some of them are good and some of them are not so good. And you're going to see just the range of things that cause stress in our lives. So, first one is demands beyond your ability to cope. And so, we all have our coping mechanisms, we all have our ways to get through the day. And, even with stress, we all have our ways of handling stress. For me, like when I get stressed out, I like diffusing adaptive, right? It calms me down. So when we have demands that go through beyond our ability to cope, then we get stressed by that. Marriage can be stressful at times, especially if we aren't seeing eye to eye on things, or especially if we're going in two different directions and we're trying to make things work. A job loss can be very stressful because you don't know where your finances are coming from. A new baby can be stressful, right? Prepping for it, um, crying throughout the night, being up with it. Like there's just so many things that happen when you have a new baby that can cause stress in your lives. Your whole dynamic changes, especially if it's your first child, right? The whole dynamic of the family changes. Loss of a loved one, that changes your day to day, especially the closer they are. And that can cause a lot of stress. Arguments can cause stress. Saying yes to everything causes stress because you become overwhelmed with things in your schedule. And sometimes it stresses you out to say no. Traffic can be stressful. Anyone who's driven in Calgary at rush hour knows that. A heavy workload can be stressful. Being overworked, working too many hours, being undervalued, not having people appreciate you, financial concerns. And that, sometimes that's lack of funds, that sometimes that's overspending, sometimes that's just not budgeting and then not knowing when you need money or where your finances have gone. Buying a house or a car, that can be stressful. Relationship issues, general overwhelm, just being overwhelmed by circumstances or by things that are going on. Divorce can be stressful, whether it's yours or a close friend or a family member. It can be stressful. Family can be stressful. Accidents can be stressful. Weddings can be stressful. A new job can be stressful, especially if it's nothing you've done before. Then that can cause you a lot of stress. And that's a good thing. Like a new job is a good thing, but it can cause you stress. A promotion can cause stress. Moving, job insecurity, conflict at work, lack of control, debt, unexpected expenses. So that would be like an appliance breaking down or a hailstorm, things like that. Caring for sick family members, long waits, whether it be long lines or Other things, sometimes it's you are waiting for something to arrive in the mail and it's been delayed, and you're just like, seriously? And that can be stressful. Health issues can be very stressful. Pregnancy can be stressful. Parenting challenges can be very stressful. When your child is defiant, or when you share things with them and they are not applying it to their lives, it can be very stressful. Lack of sleep. I know for me, lack of sleep causes me a lot of stress, especially if it's been more than 3 days, because then I'm like, that. Not only am I exhausted, but I'm edgy, and then that just causes me more stress. Noise, especially if it's excessive noise and you're just wanting peace and quiet, that can be really stressful. Legal issues, uncomfortable living conditions, uncertainty, infertility, mental health concerns, politics can be a cause of stress in our lives, because especially the politicians that are directly impacting our lives, that causes us stress, especially if it's not going in a direction that we want it to. Renovations, that can be stressful. Job relocation, children struggling in school can be stressful too, because what do you do? Do you get a tutor? Do you try helping them yourself? All these questions can plague you with a lot of stress. So I love this. I came across this today and I love it. The truth is that stress doesn't come from your boss, your kids, your spouse, traffic jams, health challenges, or other circumstances. It comes from your thoughts about your circumstances. So all of those stressful things we just talked about, the stress doesn't actually come from those things. It comes from what we think about our circumstances. So if we go back to the loss of job, because this is fresh in my mind today, because a friend of mine, they're going through that right now. And so with the loss of a job, it can be extremely stressful, or it can be an opportunity. It depends on how you look at it, especially if it's a job that you've been struggling with your boss in for a while, and there's been, you know, a lot of things going awry. It could be the answer to the stress that you've been going through to get a new job. And maybe it will be a better job than the one you left or got let go of. And in that case, it's actually an opportunity. And so I think that's what it's talking about. You can look at these challenges as problems, or you can look at them as opportunities. And it changes the amount, like how we respond and how our body responds to that. So I want to share some verses that kind of back this up. So Philippians 4:6-7 says, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Not just most things, but everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. Thankfulness actually helps us to focus on the positive things and helps us to shift that view of our circumstance. Then you'll experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and your minds as you live in Christ Jesus. And peace is what we all want to live in. We don't want to live in stress max zone. We want to live in peace. But in order to do that, we need to actually trust God with everything and allow Him to take those burdens from us. Isaiah 41:10 says, don't be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be discouraged, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will hold you up with my victorious right hand. God is always with us, and He is strong enough to handle anything we face. We just have to be able to lay it at His feet and leave it there. And that's hard to do. We are human beings. We tend to hold on to things. It's a control thing, right? If we feel out of control, then we don't, that can stress us out. We already talked about that in the stress section. So what happens when we leave it to God? We feel like we've lost control. But if we trust God, then we can trust that He's in control of it. So we don't have to control it. And I think that is the mind shift that I've experienced, is that I don't have to control it. I used to be a really controlling person, and at times I still can be, but I have to remind myself that God's in control. I don't have to control it. God does. And He's sovereign over everything. I don't have to worry about it. He's got it. And so that's the biggest thing for me to be reminded of when I get into those moments where I'm trying to control everything and I know I can't. If I give it to God, I don't have to do that. And Isaiah 40:31, but those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar high on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. I don't know about you, but when I'm going through a really stressful time, I feel weary. I feel faint. I feel weak. But to know that if I trust God and I lay those things at His feet and I rest on His strength, I don't have to feel that way anymore. I can run. I can walk. I can do that in His strength, not my own. And that's where that peace comes in. And I just want to encourage you today that if you're stressed out, give it to God, because He's the one who can carry it all. Like there's so many things in our lives that can get us focused on our circumstances and our eyes off of Him. But if we can refocus our eyes back on Him, it changes everything. And I just want to leave you with that before I pass it off to Laura.
Thanks for sharing that, Connie. It's so true that when we feel, the stress response from all of these things in our life, that we can commit them to God, right? And it does in a lot of ways come down to your perspective, right? And I think I was talking to somebody earlier this week about this, like, do you see your cup half full or half empty, right? And our perspective can change the way that we operate in our life and also the chemical reactions in our body. And so Connie came from more of an emotional or spiritual point of view when it comes to handling stress, but I want to really go deep here into how it actually manifests in our body. Because a lot of times when we feel a stress, so stress is actually our body's physical reaction to the outward stimulus that we're experiencing. So we're feeling anxiety, we're feeling frustrated, we're feeling angry, we're feeling depressed, we're feeling like we have all these emotions about these experiences that we're going through, all the things that Connie mentioned, whether it's a loss of a family member, a job loss, maybe a newborn baby in the household, whatever the external circumstance is, the feeling of stress that we have in our body is just our body's way of reacting. And that comes from our sympathetic nervous system, right? And I'm going to use a few, you know, um, biological terms today. So stick with me. I'm going to try to make it as clear as possible. And by the end of today, I hope that you can see what is happening in your body and how you can actually bring calm to that. And when we are in this state for so long, right? It's almost like, you have a stressful moment and it's like you can't even come out of it before something else happens in your life and you feel like you live in chronic stress. And I know what chronic stress feels like. I lived in chronic stress for over 30 years. And it had an incredible toll on my body. I had a complete physical burnout, and then my health declined significantly to the point where I couldn't do anything. And my doctor said that there was no cure for me. And so, some of the things I'm going to be talking about today are some of the strategies I used to actually reverse all of that in my life. And I'm happy to say now I have my life back. I don't um I don't live a life of chronic stress. I have strategies, I have tools. I know how to calm that sympathetic nervous system and what to do. And I want to teach that to you today. I want to teach you how to regulate this response in your body so that you can manage it appropriately, because we can't eliminate stress from our life. It's impossible, because we're always going to have moments that come that are very hard to deal with, hard to cope with. But the question is, what do we do with it? Right? And do we allow our body to go into that fight, flight, and freeze mode and stay there? Or do we learn how to go through that mode and then get back to calmness? So this is what the acute stress response should look like. So at the top, you see the word acute stress. So that would be any one of those things that Connie mentioned uh, on those 4 slides, those many different things that cause us circumstances in our life that cause us stress. So what happens is our brain processes all of those emotions and detects, what the problem is, what the threat is in our life, right? And from there, it communicates with our hypothalamus, which is our brain's command central. So that's where your brain tells your body what to do in regard to the stress that you're feeling. And if it's a stressful moment, your body is going to release hormones like adrenaline and epinephrine, which also releases cortisol. Now, if you know anything about cortisol, it keeps your body on high alert, right? It keeps your body in that fight, fight or flight mode. It also mobilizes energy in your body. So that's what allows you to act, right? A lot of times when we're in stressful situations, we have to act quickly. We have to make a decision, right? So it's like that burst of energy that will, which is important when we're actually in a real threat, right? Like if a bear was there, it would be appropriate for us to have adrenaline rush so that we escape the danger of the bear. But, if we're in a traffic on the road and someone cuts us off and we're having that same adrenaline response, that's not normal. And that's what we don't want, right? This also suppresses non-essential functions in your body. So, for example, like digestion, immunity, some of those things that when your body thinks that you have to fight for your life, those things slow down or shut down altogether. And then that leads us to the next step, which is action. Your body, either fights, goes into flight, or freezes. And I'm sure that you can identify with at least one of those, but maybe even all 3 of those states. I know I can. I've been in all 3 of those states. And personally, I find all of them, in some ways quite debilitating, right? From there, it should naturally go to where we start to deal with whatever stressful event it is or whatever trigger it was. This is where your brain is supposed to recognize the threat and also recognize that, whether it is a threat or not, and whether or not the threat's over. And from there, that's when your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in. It starts communicating to your brain, okay, the threat is over. You no longer have to be releasing these, adrenaline and cortisol hormones. And instead, it will release dopamine, serotonin, which helps regulate it and bring you to a place of calm. And then you can stay in that place until, once again, a new acute stress pops up and you do the whole cycle all over again. So when we go to the next slide, we're going to see. So this is what happens when you have chronic stress, right? And when your body doesn't have the ability to shut that off. So your brain still processes the emotion and detects the threat. Your brain still communicates that this is a stressful moment and it needs to release the hormones. You still go through that fight, flight, and freeze response. But at this point, your brain starts to tell you that you're unable to deal with it and you cannot process what's going on. That's when you feel overwhelmed. That's where Connie was saying, sometimes we get stuck by what we think, right? A lot of times when I'm in difficult situations, it'll be like, this is too overwhelming. I can't do anything about it. God's not going to come through for me, right? And our thoughts play a lot into this whole process. But when we get into the state where we're unable to deal with what's happening, when we feel ill-equipped, when we feel overwhelmed, then what happens is our sympathetic nervous system stays on high alert. So our body just continues to pump those hormones that keep us in this state, and we become unable to regulate our nervous system. We stay in a heightened state and we become unable to cope with even minimal stressors. And it continues in this cycle, right? So it's like, after, if I'm not able to allow my parasympathetic nervous system click in to bring me calm and peace and relaxation, when that next stress happens, I'll be less likely able to handle it. And I just continue in this crazy cycle. So to go into a few more details, the sympathetic nervous system is what you would consider like the gas pedal, right? Like you push that gas pedal and you are going, right? I mentioned it mobilizes your energy stores. It suppresses non-essential functions. How it manifests in the physical realm will look like chronic fatigue. It will look like digestion issues. You will have headaches. You will have difficulty sleeping. That's what it looks like in the physical. In regards to your cognitive self, you'll have brain fog, poor concentration, have a hard time with your memory. And emotional, have heightened anxiety, irritability, and emotional shutdown or numbness, or I would say even over emotional, right? Like kind of completely losing yourself emotionally over things that completely don't matter, right? And what chronic stress looks like, this is where your hypothalamus remains activated and overreacting to normal stressors. And it is continually releasing adrenaline and epinephrine. It inhibits your neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. So that means it keeps your body from producing those to help bring you into a state of calm. It releases cortisol, which keeps your body in high alert and causes your body to continue to suppress your normal body functions. It contributes to inflammation and gut issues and causes a weakened immune system and also causes mental health concerns due to the long-term stress. Connie, before you go on, I want to just share a story. So I've been working on managing my stress for a long time. I had come through 30 years of chronic stress that really just took a beating on my health, my mental health, my physical health. So I feel like I had, conquered a lot of these things. And most recently, my brother is having some significant challenges in his life and he needed help. And he has 3 children between the ages of 4 and 6. And he asked if I could help take care of them for a period of time. It was, I believe, 4 or 5 days. And we said yes. But, as I started thinking about what it was like to have 3 toddlers or 3 young children in the house again, immediately I was taken back to what was one of the major parts of my stressor and my overwhelm, which was being a mom of 4 young children at home and all of the stresses that I had. I won't go into all the details of the stresses that I had, but it was so overwhelming. And what I, it felt like I was experiencing PTSD about these children coming back to stay with me. And when they actually arrived here, the first 2 days were pretty hard for me. And what I realized what was happening was my body, like your body has cellular memory, right? So my body was recognizing the fact that there was 3 kids in the house and my body was freaking out thinking that this was me, that I was going to be experiencing exactly what I had experienced, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And it was hard for me at first to realize what was happening, right? Like I didn't know how to shut it off, right? This was an automatic stress response that was happening in my body due to a circumstance that was happening, but I felt like I had no control over it. And my husband was trying to talk to me about it. And I just felt like I couldn't communicate to him what I was feeling. And I just took some moments alone and I was just like, Laura, what is it that's really going on here? And so then I was finally able to communicate to Doug. And I said, look, right now, there's absolutely nothing wrong. We have these three beautiful kids in the house. They're good kids. You know, everything's wonderful. There's no problems, but my body is freaking out. My body is in this fight flight mode. Cortisol is pumping. Like I am full on adrenaline. Like everything is at full steam ahead. And once I realized that it was just something that was happening within my body, I realized I know how to shut this down. I know how to calm this down. I know how to reverse this. And I'm telling you this story because, you know, you might get through a difficult situation and then all of a sudden it's like something triggers it again in your life and you think, well, I thought I dealt with this. Why am I having so many difficulties with this? Why am I so overwhelmed? And, you know, if you realize that this is really just a chemical reaction in your body, this is a normal thing that God created in our body so that we would be protected when we are actually in danger. When we realize that this is a natural response that's happening, and when we can look at the circumstances and say, you know what, there's nothing wrong here, right? Even when you're in the car, if you're in a traffic jam and all of a sudden you have this cycle start, you can rationalize with yourself, there's nothing wrong in this moment, right? That person has passed me, they're going on. Like, I don't have to remain in this fight or flight. I can enter into calming it and helping my parasympathetic nervous system kick in. And I want to share with you what that looks like and how you do that. So our parasympathetic nervous system is like the brakes in a car, right? That's when you slam on the brakes and you bring it to a halt. That's what you want to do when you're in this stress response. You want to bring it to a stop. You want to be able to calm your body. And when you do that, when you activate your parasympathetic nervous system, it actually activates your essential body functions, such as rest. It helps restart your digestion. It helps with tissue repair, and it starts to restore your hormonal balance. This is when you release endorphins, those feel-good hormones like serotonin and dopamine. It's at this time that you'll find that your heart rate starts to decrease. You're able to breathe easier, and also your immune system kicks back in. And one other interesting point that I found out was that it also your body also releases insulin to help regulate your blood sugar spikes. So this is what we want when we're going through all these stressful moments, and we all go through them. When we're going through them, we want to be able to pass through that quickly and be able to go back into supporting our parasympathetic nervous system to kick in. Because I would say 95% of the things that we experience that cause us stress are not life-threatening. They're not something that needs to keep us in that stress response. But most of us do. We stay in that cycle and it causes so many issues in our bodies. If you think about it, if when we're in that fight and flight mode, if it suppresses your immune system, right, that might explain why if you're constantly stressed, you're always getting sick, right? Because your immune system isn't functioning, it isn't working. So this is why it's important for us to be able to learn how to come through that whole process, feel the emotions, think the thoughts, but then shift them and then be able to support this part of the nervous system and enter into hormonal balance and peace and calm. So the main way we do this is through your vagus nerve. I don't know if you've heard of it before. It is the largest nerve in your body. It has more nerve connections coming through it than anything else in your body. In fact, you have over 5,000 nerve connections coming straight from your gut through the vagus nerve. You have more communication that happens from this nerve that goes to your brain than your brain goes to the rest of your body. This is a very important part of your body. I don't feel like it's talked about nearly enough. There isn't a lot of understanding about it, and it runs straight up and down your spine. Now, this nerve is connected to absolutely every single organ in your body, and it communicates with all of your body based on what's happening with the chemical chemistry of your body. So when we activate the vagus nerve, what happens is we recover faster from stress and exertion, right? When we're able to activate this nerve, we're able to turn on the parasympathetic nervous system and shut off, all of those cortisol and all those negative hormones that are causing us to feel that extra stress. It also helps us maintain clarity, focus, and helps us to make decisions under pressure. It also improves our emotional regularity, or how we regulate our emotions, and our resilience. It activates your body systems such as digestion, immunity, and blood sugar regulation. And your body will communicate to your brain that you are safe. And it releases those hormones that contribute to the feeling of peace, joy, and contentment. So it's important that we learn how we can do that. How can we reset our nervous system using the vagus nerve? So these are 5 of the most common ways that we can do this. The first one is through controlled breathing. Now, you will often hear when people are feeling stressed, when they're feeling overwhelmed, you've heard many times before, just breathe deeply. Just take deep breaths, right? In through the nose, out through the mouth. And it's true. That actually helps activate and reset your nervous system by activating the vagus nerve. Another cool one is vocal vibrations through humming or singing. Have you ever been in a really stressful moment and having a really bad day, and then you start singing your favorite song, and then all of a sudden things are shifting for you? It's because you're activating the vagus nerve. Another one is cold exposure. You can do this through splashing cold water on your face. And you'll have noticed this, when people are in a stressful business meeting and then they're like, I just need a minute to myself. They go to the washroom, and what do? They splash cold water on their face to help calm them down. Another thing you could do is have a 30-second cold shower, or put an ice pack on the side of your neck or on your chest. All of these different ways are going to help activate your vagus nerve. Some other sensory techniques you can use is massaging your ears, probably even massaging your body. Also, grounded movements such as walking or swaying, twisting, or bending. When you look at some of the even exercises that are involved with lymphatic drainage and those kind of things, there's a lot of twisting. There's a lot of even uh, light, not light movement, things that you do with your eyes. So you'll hold your finger out like this, right? And you move your head and you look at your finger as you're moving your head up and down. Or, another one that I did, and I actually did this one this morning, which is probably why I had such a good day, but you literally lay on your back and, as you have your hands here and as you bring it down, you're moving your head at the same time. And what you're doing is you're activating the vagus nerve by stimulating different parts of your brain. Another one is laughter. Laughter moves that diaphragm and at the same time activates the vagus nerve. And then some long-term supports are probiotics, omega-3 supplements, and consistent good sleep on your right side. And the reason they recommend on your right side is because your vagus nerve is primarily on the right side of your body or on the right side of your spine. And so when you sleep on your right side, it, for some reason, activates it more than it does if you were to sleep on your back or the left side. So when you think about these things, some of these you've probably already used, or you've heard about them when, people have talked about how to calm yourself, how to manage your emotions, how to, you know, take yourself out of a difficult situation. But maybe you didn't understand what it was doing in your body, right? And now that you understand what it's actually doing, I feel like you can actually say, you know what, I'm going to go do whatever it is that you choose to do in the moment. Maybe go sing your favorite song, or maybe take 5 minutes and just breathe deeply. Allow your body to start to relax. Allow that part of your body to start activating and kicking in and doing what it was created to do. And, I encourage you to make this a part of your daily practice. When you feel stressed, implement some of these strategies to activate this vagus nerve in your body, and you will see things shift. You will see things shift for the better. And I liked this quote that I found. It says, learning how to settle the nervous system in the midst of overwhelm is training for fueling your soul's mission here on earth. We all have a purpose. We all want to achieve things. We all want to live a life of fulfillment. But if we're constantly in a state of overwhelm and fight or flight and and stress, it's we can't really achieve what we were created for. When I was in my most stressful time, there was no way I could even think past what I was struggling with to stepping into, things I wanted to do, goals I had, dreams I had, and now that I've learned how to regulate this part of my nervous system and be able to process through stress so much quicker, and then enter into being at rest, being calm, being able to think rationally. It has opened me up to so many possibilities of being able to pursue purpose. And when I look back at even the last 5 years, because some of my greatest, uh, movement forward when it came to my health was within the last 5 years. And since I've tackled some of these things and really established some of these routines in my life, I look at what I've achieved in the last 4 to 5 years, and it's incredible. And, I believe the same can be for you. As you start to learn how to manage this part of your life, handle stress in an appropriate way, and where your body isn't thinking that you're constantly in danger and constantly anxious and feeling all of these things, that you can actually start using that energy to pursue the things that God has for you. So we're going to take uh, a little time, and we're going to use one of the um, examples used at how we can activate the vagus nerve, which is breathing deeply. And if you've never done this before, you might think, well, this is ridiculous. How can breathing ever change anything? But what I want you to do is, just take for a minute, just take an assessment of how you feel in your body. Do you feel tense? Do you feel tired? Do you feel um, at rest? Do you feel calm? Like, what are you feeling in your body? And then we're going to, for about 5 minutes, I want you to do an exercise called box breathing. So the way that the method works, it's a 4-4-4 method, which involves you inhale for 4 seconds and you hold it for 4 seconds. It's hard for me to do this properly when I'm talking, and then you exhale for 4 seconds, and then you hold it again, and then you keep repeating that for the next 5 minutes. And I'll show you once before we get started. So it'll look like this. You breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold, And you just keep on doing that for the next 5 minutes. And then at the end of this, I want you to then kind of evaluate how you're feeling. Has the stress from your shoulders left? Has maybe some of the tension in your neck loosened? Has maybe the pressure that you felt in your head gotten less? Are you feeling more at peace? Are you feeling more at rest? And when you experience this, you'll realize how powerful this is. And when you're in those stressful moments, how you can use these simple tools to help reset your nervous system, help activate that vagus nerve so that you can come out of that stress response and back into calm and back into peaceful mindset and the peaceful body that you want. You want your body to be at rest. So as you finish off this breathing exercise, I want you to just take account of how you feel physically. Do you feel lighter? Do you feel like some of that stress has, just fallen off? Also, you may have experienced yawning a lot. That's a sign that your body is actually needing more oxygen, needing more. See, I'm yawning. I'm not sure if that occurred for you, but it's a sign that it's like, yes, my body needs this. I need to breathe deeply, right? And so those are just really great ways for your body to communicate with you. And one of the biggest things I learned through my healing journey was how to listen to my body. Our bodies were made by God and they're wonderfully made. And when we realize all of the things that are happening and all of the processes that happen and how one thing impacts the other, and we realize that when we start feeling things in our body, right? We can recognize what it is. When you start feeling that tension in a stressful moment, you can be like, I know what this is. I know how to handle this. I know what to do. And you can start taking control over the stress that you feel on a daily basis and start living more from a place of calm and control and and being able to manage and regulate. And we talk a lot about regulation with children and their emotions. Well, we're talking about the same thing, but regulating your nervous system. So as we close up today, I want to leave you with 3 keys to remember. Number 1, we all experience stressful circumstances in life. It's how we view them that determines how we respond to them. So if you feel like you're powerless over what's happening to you, that you'll never overcome, that you're not equipped, you're going to stay in that mindset and you're going to stay in that stress response for as long as you have that same mindset. Number 2, understanding how your nervous system responds to your circumstance is important. You can't fix what you don't understand. I hope that with what I shared today, you have a little bit of a greater understanding of how this chemical reaction is happening in your body and how you can bring some calm to it. Which brings us to number 3, learning how to regulate your nervous system. It doesn't mean you're always going to be calm. But what it means is you'll be able to quickly pass through those difficult circumstances and then return to a calm and regulated state. And like the quote on the side says, the goal is not to have a calm nervous system, but to have a regulated one. It's not that you want to be calm for the rest of your life and have nothing impact you, right? No, the fight or flight response, the stress response in your body is important and it's needed in certain moments. But the problem is we have heightened stress responses and our stress response system in our body is responding to things that shouldn't be. It's responding to things that we should be able to manage on a day-to-day basis without it, causing us to go into this cycle. And that is the goal, is that you learn how to regulate your nervous system so that you can manage it well. And when you do have that response, when you do end up having that happen, that you know how to bring it into regulation and calm it down. So I hope that you were able to glean some information from this, that it's given you some insight into yourself, how you manage stress. Maybe it's given you some clues as to maybe where you can tweak a few things so that you can actually manage your stress better. Next month, we will be talking about healthy interactions between others, how you can change your relationships and how you can communicate better with each other by using I statements, where you're coming from a place of sharing vulnerably from your own experience and how you're perceiving things, instead of coming from a place of attacking other people by saying, you did this, or you did this, or you said this, and you impacted me in this way. And I most recently have been using this strategy, and I have seen some incredible shifts in some of my relationships. And so this is what we will be talking about in February. And Connie and I have had some lengthy discussions on what the webinars are going to look like moving forward. And we've come to a decision that, everyone has busy lives. And, most of the people that are interacting with the content that we're providing, they're doing it on their own. They're watching it after the live recording. Sometimes I think a lot of the topics we talk about are actually quite in depth. They might be topics that people aren't comfortable talking about or showing their face that they're dealing with this. And so oftentimes people are not showing up live and they're just simply watching the recording. And we have noticed over the past year that the amount of people actually attending live has been decreasing significantly, to the point where Connie and I have decided we're going to continue our webinar series. We're going to continue releasing webinars every month. But instead of going live, Connie and I are going to just record them on our own, and then we will release them on the first Thursday of every month. It will be still sent to your email box. It will still be put in our YouTube channel and still put on our website. But we've decided that we won't be going live in this format anymore. And for those of you who feel like you're missing out on that one-on-one, or that interaction where you can talk about these things, this would be a great opportunity. That if you want to talk through some of the things that you're learning in these webinars, that would be a great time for you to actually reach out to one of our mentors on a one-on-one basis and be able to talk through some of those things that might be coming up through what you're learning in the webinars, and do it more on a one-on-one instead of in a group setting. And I think it might open you up to greater results, being able to share more openly, right? Because sometimes you might not know who's on the call and you might not want to share vulnerably with what's going on in your life. And so this is a shift that we're making for 2026. And I believe it will be a good shift. I believe that it will create some really great opportunities for us to meet with you guys one-on-one for areas that you're particularly struggling in. And I recommend and encourage you to reach out to us in that capacity. You can go on our website, you can book one-on-one appointments with any one of our mentors at any time. It'll show our availability, and we can help walk you through these things. But once again, we will not be going live, but we will release the next webinar on the first Thursday of February, which is February 5th. I am still doing my passionate pursuit in the mornings. I have switched the time to 7:30 a.m. I'm now on more winter time since it's still dark out until about 7:30. And so instead of going live at 6, I'm now going live at 7:30 Monday to Friday, except for on holidays. And so if you want to be challenged in your faith, you want to hear what God's been putting on my heart each day, and you want to be able to learn more, feel free to join me. You can either join me live on Facebook, or you can just watch the recordings on my YouTube, on the NOSA YouTube channel, and they're all available there. Today we did day 300, so there's 300 episodes that you can go back and watch, and they're actually really powerful. I tend to go back and watch them, and I get so much out of it just by even listening to it again. So I encourage you, if you haven't participated, if you haven't listened in at all, this might be something that you might want to do. It might help grow your faith. It might help you solidify some things in your walk with God and help you in that way. Connie and I still do our No Sub Unleashed podcast. So we have 2 episodes every month that we release. It's in line with the topic of the month. And so, if you're interested in learning more about our personal stories, some of our own personal struggles, we share more candidly and we share a lot more personally on our podcast. And so you can subscribe to that so you don't miss any new episodes. And we would love to have you join us there as well. So thank you for joining us this month.